Rico on the beat.
Peace, peace, peace. See if I can get this thing to turn down a little bit.
Rico on the beat.
Peace, peace, peace. Hope everyone can hear me. Everyone's good. Give me a sound check if you can. If not, we'll keep flowing. This is the final class for the Black History class we've been doing. Shout out to Sign of the Times. Shout out to Tyrone. Shout out to Miss Tony, League of Intelligence. Appreciate everyone who's been tuning in and catching the replays, et cetera, when it comes to getting involved in our history. Knowledge, information they don't share in the school system. So I appreciate everyone for checking out the video and for taking a look and hearing what we have to say about it. There we go. We started with Black History Month in February. We launched out these classes. I think in the second week is when we started, and we've been going strong ever since. This is the final week over 10 weeks. This is our 9th one, final one. Shout out to Carter G. Woodson, who started this particular emphasis on our history back in 1926 with the Negro Educational Week, Negro History Week. That was back in 1926, I believe. And then years later, decades later, the students of Kent State, shout out to Kent State, said, listen, a week isn't enough. We need a year. Excuse me, not a year. We need a month. We need more time. We need 4 weeks. And so Kent State said, listen, we're going to use February. We're going to celebrate the whole month long. And the reason why Carter G. Woodson and Kent State even got involved in that is because this information wasn't being shared in the school system. Our people were being socialized in a way where they didn't know who they were. Accomplishments, achievements, excellence wasn't being shared in the school system. And so we needed a way to emphasize what we've done, what we've contributed, to kind of get an idea of who we really are. So a week was started, then a month. Now, in this generation, our mission, our job is to go from a week, a month to where it's mandatory. That's our next move. It's mandatory. Everybody should know. Why should they know? We're going to get into that. We're going to kind of review all the things we've been talking about, all the information, all the knowledge, everything we had. We've been going over, kind of recapping. Let's figure out what we're going to do with it going forward. That's important. What are we going to do with it? So shout out to Carter G. Woodson. What up, Brother Wiley? Shout out to the students of Kent State. And shout out to you who's about to make moves. Marcus Garvey said, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. No roots. You don't have your history, origin, and your culture. So he made an emphasis of that. You have to know this. That's kind of like what fueled Marcus Garvey and his whole organization, a knowledge of self, a knowledge of who they were. And so there's an importance of history that we have to go over. It's not just some collection of dates or just some old information back in the day. It literally helps to define who you are, what you are, who you are in relation to, and what you're capable of, what we're capable of as a people. That's important. Again, racial stigma is real. On Thursdays, we have classes at Stop the Violence type classes, and we're going over some of the triggers and the causes of violence. What's going on, Ms. Marquita, of violence in our communities? And so one of the things that we identified as a trigger is stigma of race, along with economic exclusion and jobs that don't pay a living wage, in addition to no public services or poor public services, meaning when you call the police don't hardly come. So people are left to fend for themselves, fight on their own. So lack of public services, the ambulance is slow, the trash pickup doesn't come. You have slumlords, landlords, all those things contributing. The third one was stigma of race. Stigma of race, internalizing a negative self-image about yourself relative to race. We know that N word comes up. We seem to identify with that word. You hear it every day. People call us that word. Sometimes us, we say the word. We answer to it. We do all of that. And we'll get into why that's important in just a minute, why that's a detrimental part of the attack that's on us. And then outside of stigma of race, You also have, of course, the drug and drug trafficking. You put those things in our community. We're talking about the causes of violence. And the fifth one was alienation and the loss of hope for the future. Alienation and loss of hope for the future. All these things go together, but stigma of race is a big one. Getting you to see yourself according to another group's perception. And in this case, it's a negative one. And so history helps to cure that, reverse it. Important. And, you just heard me jib-jab about how important it is, but it's a serious thing. Power dynamics are in play. Look at that last line. The social system that's created, the economy, the economic system that's created. Where are Black people in terms of the economic system in America? On the bottom. On the bottom. That matches our political power. Very low. All of that goes in line with the social order that's in place. We tend to be on the bottom of the social order. And that comes with a negative self-image of ourselves and our people. What fixes that? History fixes that. It's easy to put a people on the bottom when they don't know who they are. So this is why we have to teach history. We should be developing Saturday schools until they put it in the school system. Get young people to come over. Use basketball if you have to. Use food. Use the arts. Use music. Use whatever you can and infuse knowledge of self, our history, everything inside those activities. Do whatever you can. We have to change how we see ourselves, which will change the political standing we have, the economic standing we have, everything predicated upon identity. That's important. So that's what we've been yip-yapping about these last 9 weeks, man. History, accomplishment, melanin, everything. Here's Carter G. Woodson. He said, when you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. That's a fact. He'll find his proper place. And in this proper place, this country, the proper place is on the bottom, on the back door, in the back. He says you'll find your proper place and you'll stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back door. He'll go without being told. Already been socialized and conditioned, is what he's saying. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll protest until one's made for his use. In that last sentence, his education demands it. His perspective, the way he sees himself, his role in society, where he's supposed to be, his proper place will demand it. That's key. So we're trying to disrupt that with this type of information. The Black Panther Party was trying to disrupt that with proper understanding and information. The UNIA, Marcus Garvey's group, was trying to disrupt that with the information. Black Liberation Army, same thing, trying to disrupt that. Pan-Africanism, RBG, Red, Black, and Green, trying to disrupt that with information that cures this problem that Carter G. Woodson is talking about right now. Without this, we'll continue to perpetuate these same issues that had 100 years ago. That's why we go over it. That's why we do it. And then this is kind of like the outcome, a visual understanding of how things look. Look at that picture on the right we went over a few weeks ago. It's like participating in our own demise, self-destruction, that identity crisis. Again, there's a certain label that you can put on people. And once they internalize that, they'll act accordingly. You take that negative connotation of that N-word and you see how we apply it, and then look at our outcomes. Look at our behavior. That's just a part of it. Or thinking that we're criminals. All kind of other things. The self-hate kicks in. No confidence or ambition, aiding our own demise, self-destruct, no cultural connection. All these things are a result of a certain key element not being included in the school system, in our socialization, in our education. And that's knowledge of who we were. Who were Black people before slavery should trump any type of historical information we start with. The first thing we start with is who we really are. Then we go into events that led to us being in the position we are now. So we get a proper understanding. That's why we put this up. Very important. And then this is another outcome of being miseducated and not understanding who you are. You tend to have these types of outcomes. This right here is just an exaggerated representation of what our current situation is. What do you think the mindset is of these brothers that are holding them up? Like we just saw that one visual with the noose. His own brain was forming a noose with the self-destruction. We already saw that one slide that talked about us being on the bottom socially, economically, and politically as a result of being miseducated. And look at this. This is like a visual representation of exactly what we just talked about. The effects, there's cause and effect. This right here is one of those illustrations. Very important. How do they accomplish that? Besides the miseducation, not including the history, which has our accomplishments, our achievements, what we've contributed to humanity, how we built humanity, how we built civilization, the sciences we developed, the mathematical formulas we developed, how we converted raw materials and natural resources into usable technology in those days. All those things that equal out to and demonstrate our intelligence aren't included. In addition to not including those things, miseducating us, you have the concept called Pavlov's dog. Does anyone remember what we said about Pavlov's dog? If you don't, I'm going to remind you. Pavlov's dog is where you were, well, let me say the experiment. First, the experiment. Pavlov had a dog, of course, and they had a bell. And every time they would ring the bell, the dog would come and they would feed the dog. Ring the bell, the dog would come, they feed the dog. So the dog understands when I hear the bell, I'm going to get food. After a while, they would ring the bell and the dog would start to salivate in anticipation of the food he was about to get. Ring the bell, dog starts salivating. After a while, they would ring the bell and then not give the dog food. But the dog continued to salivate all throughout the experiment. Ring the bell, no food's coming, still salivate. He's been conditioned that when he hears the bell, food is associated with that. And once it internalized, you never let go of that. You never stopped. What am I talking about? When you associate certain characteristics with blackness, with black people, you start to think a certain way. For instance, do we identify with the N-word? Are black people, in fact, the N-word? Is that who we are when you break it down? When you hear it, you think us. When you think black, you think that word. You think the things that come along with that word, the characteristics, the criminality, the savagery, the ignorance, all those things that they've kind of demonized our culture with and our people with, we tend to think because it's been characterized with that. It's been associated with that. Let me give you a picture example. Like they used to call us animals and coons and all these things. And look at the picture here. Now you might say, okay, that's kind of a picture from a while back. Okay, true. Now here's this one. And it's subtle and sneaky. I mean, look at that. I'm not sure if maybe after the fact, I don't know, but I'm not sure if LeBron James even realized what was going on when he was working for Vogue and posing for that picture. I don't even think he knew what was going on. But this is a clear example. We talked about this. How did they get us without using the chains, without using the whips, without doing those things? How did they get us to self-hate, self-defeat, think negatively about ourselves? How did they do it? This is one way they do it. Association of characteristics. This is what they do. And now, remember, even after slavery ended and our ancestors beat that, they came up with an entertainment system called blackface. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? White folks putting on the blackface and then acting ignorant, stupid, criminally, all these things to associate those behaviors with black people. Then they didn't have to use blackface anymore. Why? Black people voluntarily started to play those roles in the shows, in the movies, in the plays. We replaced them and started participating in our own demise. We started to become the thing that they projected on us, kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you can establish a certain thing on a person and someone will just naturally act it out because they think that's how they're supposed to be. And you usually establish that with authority. If you can somehow establish that you're the authority or your words mean something you should be listened to, you can now dictate self-perception. And over the years, over the decades, white America has established themselves as the authority. And what they say is what people tend to do and listen to. And that N-word was repeated to us over and over and over and over again, to where finally we were like, all right, I guess that's who I am. I'm talking about their version of the word. I guess that's what I am. We fulfilled their prophecy. They said these people are nothing but the N-word. And then we started to act accordingly over a period of time. So this is why we go over the history, to help disrupt that, to beat that, to cure that, to rescue the mind from that, to take back your righteous mind. That's what we want to do. So Pavlov's dog is one way they do it. And you'll see this method mixed all throughout entertainment and everything. Associate black folks with the negative characteristics. That's key. That's key. And you see this picture as a clear illustration. So what does Marcus Garvey say? Marcus Garvey said we're going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. While others might free the body, none but ourselves can free the mind. This is our mission. We're going to free the mind. How are we going to do it? Knowledge, information, ideas, vision, truth. What will the truth do? Someone said it'll make you free. And then not just getting any type of history or any type of information. Look what Amos Wilson says right here. Not just some feel good stuff, not just some Harriet Tubman type stuff. Shout out to the general. Not just that, but look at it. If our study of black history is merely an exercise in feeling good about ourselves, then we'll die feeling good. Nothing will change. We must look at the lessons that history teaches us, understand the tremendous value of the study of history for the regaining of our power. That's the point. Regain power. If our education is not about gaining real power, we're being miseducated and misled. Period. This is what it's all about. This is what reverses the problem. Right now, if you have a child that's in school, right now they are being miseducated without some type of supplement. You need some type of supplement. They need to know who they are, share the information, buy the books, make them give them extra assignments to do. So they have an understanding of who they are, so they don't go into this natural social order that they've established, not natural, but the social order they established and put themselves on the bottom. Remember, Carter G. Woodson says if the position isn't available, if the place isn't available to be on the bottom, they'll create one. It's like our people will seek out to be on the bottom or to be subservient, subordinate. Subordinate, the right word? Yeah. So we got to get the real education that gives us real power, the regaining of our power. And here's a concept I want you to understand. I've been on this particular journey for 8-9 years now. The word of Sankofa means to go back and fetch it. Go back. Go back. Right now, over these last 8-9 weeks, we've been going back. Before 1619, trying to figure out who we really were prior to any of this oppression that we've been subjected to, prior to any of that. And then when we go back, we bring that wisdom, we bring all of that from the past to build for the future, to use it now. Take the raw material, the natural resources of information, trying to use some like an analogy here, use all that and create with it, build with it, innovate with it, heal with it, revolutionize with it, all the information that we've been going over. What are you going to do with all the information we've been going over? What are you going to do with it? That's the whole point. Do something with it. Sankofa journey. Go back. And then when we went back, here's the image. Golden age from 50 AD to 1600 AD. Miss Marquita, listen to me now. I know we go over this in Youth Bill, but this gives me hype every time. Look at how many kingdoms we had. You know what? In Western history, they only teach 2 kingdoms, or 2 empires, the Greeks and the Romans. That's it. 2. That's like what? What is this? It's like almost 15 over there, something like that. Aksum, Ghana, Mali, we went over all these, but every single place you went, on the continent of Africa, whether it be the west side, south side, east side, central, the top, don't matter. You found prosperity. You found black people thriving. I'm not talking about being perfect. We didn't have perfect societies. We had our issues, but overall, we were a prosperous people, free, proud, and productive people. That's who we were prior to any type of slavery. You'll find that, when we went back and started studying this, doing the Sankofa journey, we found out the way we acted, The way we behaved was nothing like how we act and behave today. It was nothing like it. Nothing like it. Our character didn't even match. We didn't disrespect ourselves. We didn't call ourselves derogatory names. We didn't do any of that. We have prosperous, thriving societies based on our cultural philosophy. Period. Some examples. I don't know if y'all remember this particular statement that we went over. Very important statement, though. It says, when they arrived in the Gulf of Guinea and landed in West Africa, the captains were astonished to find streets, first of all, back then. Anyway, well laid out, bordered on either side for several leagues by 2 rows of trees, and for days they traveled through a country with magnificent fields, inhabited by men clad or dressed in richly colored garments of their own weaving, not poor folks. They didn't discover poor folks. Keep going. Further south in the Kingdom of the Congo, a swarming crowd dressed in silk and velvet. Silk and velvet. Again, when these Europeans came to our shores on the west side of Africa, they found prosperous people dressed in silk and velvet. Keep going. Great states, well ordered, and down to the most minute details. We're talking about Sankofa. Go back. But when we go back, here's what we're discovering. Here's who we were. Powerful rulers, flourishing industries, civilized to the marrow of their bones. And the condition of the countries on the eastern coast, Mozambique, for example, quite the same. Quite the same. Right? Like this is who we were. This is who we were. Another highlight. Let me go back, because it says, in the condition of the countries on the eastern coast, Mozambique, that area, for example, quite the same. So let's go over to that side and look at all this. We're using the Swahili as an example. Look at Kilwa, one of the most beautiful and well-constructed cities in the world. The whole of it is elegantly built. And it was like that all across the continent. That's just one particular city Ibn Battuta is reporting about. Next line, houses in Swahili cities are 4 to 5 stories high. 4 to 5. And you'll see this type of standard of living all throughout the continent. All throughout. Compare that to how we're living now. And we'll see what the work we have to do. We'll see where we truly belong, who we really are. Right? Indoor toilets, running piped water controlled by taps, palaces. Look at that last line. They were finely dressed, clad means dressed, in many rich garments of gold, silk, and cotton. The women as well, also with much gold and silver chains, bracelets. They wore them on their legs, arms, in their ears, everywhere. Good-looking people. Good-looking people. Look at this next one. This is about the West Coast again. This is about Benin. It says it's divided into many magnificent palaces, houses, and apartments. Have beautiful long square galleries, about as large as the Exchange in Amsterdam, but one larger than the other, it's saying. Just take a look at the standard of living that you come from. So my question is going to be throughout this whole thing, what are we going to do with this information? What are we going to do with it? What are we going to do with it? We're supposed to build off of this. Sankofa says, go back and then bring it to use it in the present to build for the future. What are we going to do with this? Tell your people, tell your neighbor, tell your kids, tell your grandparents, your parents, everybody. The last one on this golden age that I'm talking about, Exum. And I bring this up because I'm talking about that derogatory term that they came up. We all know the N word. We all know what it is. But I want to kind of give the etymology of the word so we can take that word back. You see it, third line. I'll read the second line first. 50 AD, Zoskales is the first to take Negas Nagaste or Negas Nagaste. Several pronunciations for that word, but you see what it is. First time you see any type of N-word being applied to us is right here, and it means King of Kings. Niggas literally means king. No one's making it up or trying to come up with anything. This is all Ethiopia. Ancient Ethiopia called Aksum. That's where this information is coming from. And that's attached to royalty. So we're supposed to see ourselves according to our culture. Our culture, not according to a Western lens. This is the real word. This describes who we really are. The other word is nonsense. It's a lie. It's a lie. So we went over all that information on the African continent, went over all of that. Then we highlighted this brother here, who is now an ancestor, Dr. Renuka Rashidi. We highlighted his work because he helped us discover that not only were we on point on the African continent, we left the African continent, we migrated into Asia. And when we migrated into Asia, we established civilization there too. First Kings, we're talking about, and look on the map there, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, we're talking about Syria, Jordan, that area called Palestine. The first people to inhabit the area now called Palestine were the Natufians, African people 10,000 years ago, the descendants of the Natufians, right, are the Canaanites. Just want to put that extra fact in there. But we were the first people to establish civilization in today's Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. We moved over to Iran, all the way through Afghanistan and Pakistan into the Indus Valley, which is India. We were there all throughout China, all the way to Japan, to where we were the first shogun of Japan. Tomohiro was the first shogun of Japan. Japan even said, listen, for a warrior to be brave, he has to have a little bit of black blood. They recognized it. Let's talk about China too. China one time tried to establish that they were the first people on the planet. They're the original human being, they said. And they went out to prove it. Had all these experiments, DNA, whatnot. However, mid-experiment, they had to shut it down. Why? All the DNA they collected of their people led back to Africa. Let's go. And they had to discontinue the whole thing. The first Chinese dynasty was the Shang Dynasty. Black folks. Scientifically proven. Black folks. Everywhere you went. Not just Africa. You were in Asia too. We went over all that information. There's some pictures. That's the Buddha right there. Look at the face. Look at the face. Another Indian god of wealth. This comes out of India. If you look closely, you'll clearly see that's Biggie Smalls. Clearly. I mean, who else could it be? Black folks, man. You were everywhere. You were everywhere. Then we went to the Americas. We went over information in the Americas. You were the first. Listen, I'm going to go straight to the Olmec head. That way you can see it. This Olmec head, I can't remember how many Matthew Sterling uncovered the first time he went to this area. But there's about 15, 17, something like that, of these giant 2-ton, 3-ton, I can't remember how many tons these things are, 10 feet tall. These things are huge. Look at the helmet on them, though. That's a Nubian helmet. How does a Nubian helmet get on a 10-foot statue in today's Mexico? How? Some people say, oh, they were slaves. Who builds 15 giant head sculptures of slave people? What are you talking about? Come to find out, there's 60 to they found 60 to 90,000 artifacts of African origin that predated 1492. Now you tell me how they got, in addition to this Olmec you're looking at right now, how they got 60 to 90,000 of those artifacts in the so-called Americas, but we weren't here. Not only were we free, proud, and productive people in Africa, also in Asia, and also the Americas. First civilization started in 800 BC. Before we even get to that, you had 5 different African nations that built ships and traveled here. We highlighted some of them. Ancient Mali was one of them. Songhai was another one. Kush was another one. But even before we built ships and traveled here, we migrated through Africa, from Africa, through Asia, down through the Bering Strait into the Americas. The oldest bones you ever find on this continent, on the African continent and Asia, were black folk. Guess what? Same thing for the Americas. Same thing. Oldest bones ever found, black folks. Oldest evidence of any human occupation, black folks. In other words, they found in South America remnants of charcoal. Can only be put there by human beings. They're 32,000 years old. Well, how you know it's black people? Well, watch this. The oldest bones found of any other non-black group or of white folks now was 20,000 years old. But these charcoal remains are 32,000 years old. The only group that was around on the planet at that point, black folks. Black folks, period. You've been here. You're the indigenous people of the whole planet. There's no place that you go and you're a stranger, period. You've been everywhere. All scientifically proven. Again, this information needs to be shared in the school system so we're educated correctly, so we see ourselves and our people correctly, so we know how we should line up with other groups. We're not to walk around as some subservient group, when we're the parents of humanity and the fathers and mothers of civilization. Been everywhere. You've been everywhere. Then we talked about the beauty, power, and intelligence of black women. Important. Women already as a whole are neglected. They've been neglected since male supremacy came on the scene, where an ideology was created. One of the most popular ideologies is men are logical and women are emotional. And that became a self-fulfilling prophecy as people started to internalize and believe that. And now even women say it. Oh, women are emotional, men are the logical ones. Some of the most emotional people I've ever dealt with are men. I don't know what we're doing right now. Huh? Anger is an emotion. She said, Will Smith. Anger is an emotion. Huh? How much destruction has been caused out of men who are angry? But I'm not here to bash. I'm just bringing up a point that it's not balanced. Everybody has emotion. Everyone has reason and logic. Everybody. And the Afrocentric philosophy, it's about balance. You balance both. It's complementary. One enhances the other. You need both to have proper intelligence and move in this earth realm. You need both. You need emotional intelligence. You need reason and logic. You need both. But for some reason, women first started in the Eurasian steppe have been neglected, and even black women. But we studied here that black women in our society were on point, given position. Given positions. Let me move myself. Look at that first line. Be unstinting and lavishing attentions on your wife because she is the foundation of your family. Afrocentric culture in operation here. The oldest social institution in the world is matriarchy. Social organization through the female line. Matter of fact, you can't even track humanity's history without the woman, because she's the only one who has mitochondria DNA. It passes through her, and that's how we track history. So not only does mitochondria DNA provide you with your cell energy, which causes you to live, which can only come from the woman, you can't track humanity's history without her. She's the foundation. Very important. Look at that one statement from Kenem and Borno. It says, and in so many African kingdoms, the highest positions of all were held by two women, known as the Queen Mother and the Queen Sister, each of whom had her own court and officers. So even when you saw the setup with an African king, good, he's the authority. However, the power came from the woman, and he always consulted with the Queen Mother, especially before any moves were made. You consult. Who did you consult with? Queen Mother. Power giving birth to authority. She's the power, he's the authority. It's a balance. It's a balance. That's the kind of culture you come from. No wonder they thrive the way they thrive. And women had all type of different positions, not just queen, warrior queens, soldiers, generals, everything. There were no limitations on women in our culture. That's important to understand. We didn't have this male-female rivalry that other cultures had prior to 1619. Not saying we were perfect. Again, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the cultural foundation and makeup was one of balance. It was balance. So we went over that information. Then we hit up melanin. Melanin and our blackness. Since our skin tone, skin color is the most controversial body part in the world, in world history, I think it makes sense to study what it is. Since they're trying to, remember Pavlov's dog, associate characteristics with things. They're trying to associate our skin tone, being, we say black now, being black with negativity. Being black means in the Western world, you lack the type of intelligence that other groups have. That means you lack the type of character, sophistication. You're more prone to be savage, criminal, hypersexual, right? Less than. They associate all this. But when we start to study our history, not only our history, but what melanin is from a scientific standpoint, we find out they're way off, way wrong, complete opposite. You see the first three: protects you from the UV rays from the sun. We know that. Slows the aging process. Black don't crack. We know that. Responsible for skin color. Most people know these things. That's why I have a little blah, blah, tell us more in there. Look what else it does, though. Absorbs energy. Not just any type of energy. All across the radiant energy spectrum. That's sound, ultrasonic, radar waves, radio, TV waves, visible light. This is what your melanin does now. It absorbs Earth's magnetic energy, electromagnetic energy. It changes chemical structure. It transduces or converts energy from one state to another. So vibrational energy turns into sound through melanin, turns into light through melanin. In other words, you can hear and see with through melanin. If you didn't have those things, you couldn't. You go deaf, you go blind. All scientifically proven. Look it up. Look it up. Melanin is the difference. The thing they said makes us inferior actually gives everyone the ability to hear and see. It also plays a part in your taste buds. Black people have the largest, most extensive taste palette of any group on the planet. Maybe that's why we season our food so good. I got jokes, Miss Tony. But I'm just saying, the thing they try to associate with negativity, come to find out, complete opposite. Complete opposite. Look down more. Assist in the development of the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. What does that? Melanin. Melanin controls the rhythm of all organs. Melanin acts like a computer. Look at it. Computer attributes in that it processes large amounts of information in the left, right, and midbrain areas. What does that? Melanin, thought processor, the thing that gives us this particular shade of color, operates in your brain as a thought processor, converts energy. Listen, and also works as an antioxidant. And a healer. You mess around and give your body the right type of foods in combination with the melanin you have, it turns into an antioxidant. Gets rid of all the free radicals that are in your body, not supposed to be there. What does that? Melanin. Melanin, let's do some more. The pineal gland, what people refer to as the third eye, activated by sunlight. Two types of melanin happen relative to the pineal gland: serotonin and melatonin. Again, both polymerize into melanin. These are types of melanin. What do they do? Look at that fourth line. Melatonin maintains, repairs, and builds brain and nerve tissue. Next one, serotonin, another type of melanin, causes muscles to contract, blood vessels to constrict, regulates blood, blah, blah, blah. Look at the parentheses. It deals with music, dance, athletics, thought, etc., etc. The thing that gives black people that soul vibe that we have, that sauce young people say, the it factor, all of that is melanin based. Melanin based. Like, we got to walk around proud of this stuff, understanding who we are. It's different when you get your history and knowledge of yourself. It's different. It's different. We said that you walk different, you talk different, you associate different, you respond different. Everything is different once you know who they are, once you understand who and what you are. Different. Different. This is the type of information that needs to be in the school system. And until that happens, again, one idea, put it in Saturday school. Put it in a Saturday school. Develop your own after school program. Mix it in. Host a tournament. Host a melanin basketball tournament. I don't know. Call it what you want. But infuse the information in whatever you're doing. Infuse it in there. Get people to wake up like, yo, wait a second. so that we can stop disrespecting ourselves based on miseducation, having an improper understanding of who we are. Let's go. And in the blackness period, I'm going to skip all that stuff on the top. No problem. Let's go to the bottom part real quick. Because the way we see black, our culture, versus the way Western culture sees black needs to be talked about. In the Western culture, black is a negative thing. Look what they remember Pavlov's dog, association of characteristics. Look how they associate black. Black male, right? When I say male, I'm talking about black male like framing somebody, right? Black cat, that means bad luck. I heard one person say something, I think it's something called black thumb, where when you deal with plants, they always die or something like that. Like, there's always an association of negativity with blackness in the Western framework, Western world. But look at that one next to BB right there. BB meaning black. And it means, from our cultural perspective, the essential goodness of things. It's a positive thing. Look at that term Wayne Bibby. It means black sun, meaning when the sun's at its highest point in the air, in the sky, it shines the brightest, it illuminates the brightest. They call that type of sun a black sun because black represents total expression, unlimited power, illumination. That's black. That's how they see themselves. That's why you saw all those accomplishments and achievements, the history of our people, because we had a positive image of ourselves. These are things we need to know and replace that garbage that they're subjecting us to. That's raw power moves. Hey, appreciate you, Christian. Fleming's in the building. Appreciate you. This is the stuff we went over. Important. My question as we keep going through this stuff is, what are you going to do with this information? What are you going to do with it? If you see now, we have the trees with the roots, because we were talking about culture and the things that make up culture. And we talked about culture, those things aren't the sex. That's not the sexy stuff. That's not the houses being 4 and 5 stories tall, or developing certain types of mathematics and, building pyramids and ships and sailing, do all kind of stuff. That's not what this is. This is the stuff that causes that stuff to be, the stuff that you don't really see offhand. That's why we're associated with the roots. It's not the sexy stuff, but it's important. And these two symbols represent how our societies were constructed prior to 1619, before any group came and tried to colonize us. Before those times, you have the pyramid on the left, circle on the right. The pyramid, from an Afrocentric perspective, represents self-development. Self-development, the educational system, the Mvunda process. We'll get to that. Meaning you start on the bottom and then you mold yourself through rites of passage and other educational processes to where you get to that top point. That's the best, which represents the best version of yourself. You want to get to the best version of yourself. That's the type of education that our ancestors were built on. And then you have the circle, which represents the community. You want everyone to be trying to achieve and get to the best version of themselves, and then contribute to the community as a whole. Contribute to the community as a whole. And notice with the circle, there's no point that stands out more than the other, representing equality. Everyone is equal. And when I say equal, we're talking about everyone is high value. No one is seen, talking about Afrocentric culture, no one's seen as inferior. That concept didn't exist in our culture, to be inferior. Partially because everyone believed you came from the Creator. You were a spiritual divine being. How can you be inferior if you're spiritual and divine? What is that? Anyway, pyramid in the circle. And the whole concept of community and individualism coming together was represented by Ubuntu, which represents I am because we are, and because we are, I am. They go hand in hand. Another saying is a person is a person because of people. all in combination together. This is why our societies were thriving and doing what they were doing. And I kind of like this picture. We unlock Ubuntu. That's a concept, Sankofa. That's a concept we got to go back and find and bring back to the forefront and engage in that. Spread it around. And then with that concept in play, we're all connected together with that circle that we saw. And now we all kind of spiral up together. That's the whole point. Leaving nobody behind. Everyone caring for one another. And everyone elevates. And that was the whole point. To elevate. Elevate is the key. Together. You're not going to see that in Western framework. Because it's about self. I got to do for me. I got to get mine and you got to get yours. Individualism is the way in Western society. And we see the results. Whole society is in shambles at different times. More education. Kind of broke it down. We're breaking down the Ivunda concept. It was called this on the eastern side of Africa, but you see the same type of template and setup all throughout. No matter where you find black people, before 1619, you'll find this setup. And with Ivunda concept, it's the holistic process. Everything that is known and learned in the context of the entirety of life for the purpose of furthering physical, intellectual, and spiritual growth. Imagine an education system designed on that. You're going to get a certain type of people when this is your education socialization process. What type of adults do you want your children to become? So they put this holistic process in place so they can see that vision through. Look at the word Mvunda. To mold, to form, to raise up a person in all aspects, physically, intellectually, and moral, special emphasis on morals. And it was a lifelong process. Lifelong process. We said there were two aims for it: education for living, education for life. Look at that first one, for life. To mold a person's innermost core in such a way that one gradually acquires positive human dispositions like reverence, respect, generosity, hard work, self-control. Would you like to live in a community where there's a whole bunch of people who are built on respect, generosity, hard work, self-control, etc., etc.? I want to be a part of that type of community. And then the living part is just about having the knowledge about your environment, the social structure, everything. Learning, that's where you get your sciences from, your math from, all those things, the technical aspect of it. So you combine both because people need both. And that was the foundation for education during that golden age period. Why should we even listen to this? Because we saw the results. We saw the type of communities that were built. Who better to learn from than our ancestors? Who better? Who better? Also had knowledge of self, broke it down the 4 parts. Shout out to Dr. Naeem Akbar. This is his work. Knowledge of human nature. You see that first one? Knowledge of the origins of oneself. Knowledge of nature, knowledge of God. All of that put together. Those 4 make up knowledge of self. So they would study nature, they see themselves. They would study God, they would see themselves. Study their history, they would see themselves. Look at the sciences, understand themselves through that too. Very important. Again, you see the results. That's what gives it credibility. Look at the results that our ancestors achieved. Knowledge of self. Also the 6 virtues. Talking about education. 6 virtues you were equipped with. Very important. The threefold purpose we talked about. This is big. This is big. Even your name represented what your purpose was. You didn't have random names. If you look at our names now, those are political names representing political status. Those names are rooted in property. Just being honest. Not trying to tell anyone to get radical and change your name, although I am. But I'm saying those are political names. Smith, Jones, Robinson, That's my family's last name, Robinson. You can look at us. We're not Robinson. We're melanated people. Those aren't African names. Those aren't black names. Those are European names representing what happened. There was a political shift with our people, and then we became Europeans in a sense. So what we're saying is restore yourself. Sankofa, go back, restore, return to the source is another interpretation. Free yourself. Remember Marcus Garvey in the beginning? Emancipate the mind. Get free. That's part of it. That's part of it. But threefold purpose, create beauty and harmony in the world. Create beauty and harmony in the world. Skip the yellow one, go to the next one. Destroy Isfet or evil, injustice. And then that middle one is very important because that's where we are now. Restore our people back to our traditional greatness. Let's get back to where we need to be. The only way to know where we need to be is to study where we've been. It's the only way to do it. There's no other way. That's why history is important. History is a weapon. It's a piece of empowerment. History is huge. Form of knowledge, form of information, and knowledge is power. Application is liberation. Now, more specifically with those purposes, our ancestors made sure you understood what your mission was within the purpose. So create beauty and harmony in the world. How? What's going to be your contribution to that? Destroy Isfet. How? Serve your community. How? You have certain gifts and skill development that you'll go through so that you can be a contributing member to society and fulfill purpose. And out of purpose comes work. I'm working according to my purpose. And when you work out of your purpose, you get the one thing everyone's chasing, and that's fulfillment. Our ancestors understood how to get fulfillment. Number one, what's your purpose? Number two, develop work out of that purpose. And when you do those two things, you will in fact achieve fulfillment. And that's living the life to the fullest. That's the supreme value in our culture, to live life to the fullest. How can you do that, though, if you don't know your purpose, if you're not working within your purpose? So I challenge you to do that type of internal work, that inner work. And I don't care how young or old you are, that work is always ready for you to do that work. It's always time. Encourage you to do that. Again, this is part of us going back. Sankofa, getting back our cultural perspective, bringing it back to today and using it, especially in a society where everyone's trying to find themselves, don't know who they are, lost, or taking on an identity that's not themselves. Everyone's putting on masks every day. The Western culture kind of promotes that. But our culture, we understood our purpose and our mission, and we aligned our lives up accordingly. And that's why there's so much happiness. Again, I'm not saying we were perfect, but I'm saying we were free, proud, and productive people, happy folks. Then we have this comparison we went over with the Afrocentric culture versus the Eurocentric culture. You see kind of the setup and the outcomes as a result, the type of ideology that came between the two. Afrocentric cooperative models, harmony with, versus competitive model, power over. Someone's trying to always be the alpha, kind of Darwinistic type setup. Someone has to be in charge, have the authority over other people. Authority is cool in our culture too, but not at the expense of someone else. You didn't colonize to get it. You didn't oppress to get it. If people in Afrocentric society put you in charge, it's because your character has been such high value. You've demonstrated it amongst people that you're worthy to be a person who's a steward. And then you become a servant of the people. You're not in charge of people. You're actually the servant of people. And that's how it worked. Listen, we had certain societies set up where the king didn't speak until the village gave permission. Like the king would go represent himself to other places. The people told him what he was going to say. Because you represent the people. That's where that phrase comes from. All power to the people. That's an Afrocentric ideology. All power to the people. Ubuntu. They said a king is people. I don't know if y'all catch that one. A king is people. Not one person, not an individual who lords over people and abuses authority. We're not talking about that. But again, relationship-based versus individualism, interconnected versus conflict and verses. And what Western society's whole makeup is verses. Even when you go to court, the people versus somebody versus someone. And there's a winner and a loser. All type of stuff. Afrocentric society is about consensus. What's the best outcome for the people, for the parties involved? How can we create a win-win situation? Our political philosophy was different. It was just different compared to what it is now as a result of the Western way of doing things. And that's why the Western world politically always had a revolution. There's always a people rising up for their rights and trying to fix the system that's doing them wrong. Why? That's how Westerns set it up. You didn't see revolution in Afrocentric communities. You didn't see that. Not saying they were perfect, but we were on point. Someone's always neglected in the Western world, always a group. I'm going to get off that. Afrocentric culture, though, on the left. Ubuntu, reciprocity, Simba Simbi. Simba Simbi means hold up that which holds you up. Hold up that which holds you up. Yeah, I'm going to keep going. And then these are some of the outcomes, unfortunately, in this Western society compared to an Afrocentric reality. People lack a sense of purpose. They feel lonely. Lonely is a big one. A sense of isolation, alienation, feeling like you're by yourself. No one understands you. No one gets you. Feeling neglected. No supportive community. Feeling like a nobody. And then feeling like you have to do something outrageous almost to get noticed, to get attention, to stand out. Instead of being defined for the essence of who you are, you're defined by what kind of material items you can acquire, kind of car you drive, house you have, money you have. First thing young people say when I hear them argue about different celebrities, whose net worth is higher? What's his net worth though? Crazy. You see some of the other stuff. Carbon copy, no authenticity, being a parrot or a follower. A lot of emotional problems, unhealthy feelings of anger, rage, and sadness. Again, these are outcomes of Western society. And I'm asking you to engage in the Sankofa process to where you go back and recapture what made us great and make that a part of your daily walk. Make it a part of who you are. Restore yourself back to who you need to be in your community. Unlock Ubuntu. That was the whole point of all of these different classes, to destroy the negative stigmas that come along with racism and being miseducated and being socialized on the bottom. Destroy all of that with knowledge of self, history, who you really are, your past culture, where you've been, what you've accomplished. And that's the Sankofa process right there. Go back and fetch it. Right at the hour mark, but here's my question to y'all. What are you going to do with this information? This is important. What are you going to do with this information? Take this information and do what with it? Because I can tell you, you can get some serious results with this. You can get some serious things done. Victories can be achieved. One of the things that Western society does a great job of, but can't hold us forever, is thinking that we can't win. Thinking that we can't turn it around. It's like a version of self-defeat that tries to inhabit our people. This information helps break all that up. I've seen young people, even in school, poor grades. You start telling them what type of mathematical contributions their ancestors made and how they were built for math. You help create this. They change their whole attitude towards it and go from D's, C's, even failing to B's and A's. I've seen it. I've seen adults do it. I can think of one right now in my head. He joined us in Hidden Valley that one time. He was struggling. I think he had a C in math. As soon as we went over the mathematical history and how that coincides with our people. He got so excited, he turned the whole thing around, had it finished with an A in the class. But this information can turn people's around. It can change the trajectory of your life. You're transformed. I transformed my whole life based off this information. Everything changed as of April 2nd, 2014. Everything changed. What are you going to do with this information? That's my question to y'all and anyone who's watching the replay. What are you going to do with this information? Our time is now. Remember we said Carter G. Woodson, he had Negro History Week. Then we said the students of Kent State in 1970, they had Black History Month. One thing we can do is make this information a mandatory part of our people's upbringing, education, socialization, if not force it into the school system. And while we're fighting that fight, again, Saturday schools, boom, 1 to 2 hours, go over this information with the young people, boom. Then take them swimming or something, play basketball, arts and crafts, science experiments, whatever, watch a movie, but infuse this information until they see themselves correctly. And that's all I got. That's all I got. It's been 9 weeks. Shout out to Sign of the Times, who made this whole thing possible. I appreciate everyone who's tuned in, listened to us yip yap for 9 weeks about our history. I can do this I can do this all the time, man, all day. We're a great people, man. We're a great people. Let me remind you, slavery was supposed to last the entire time, supposed to be in perpetuity. We were never supposed to be outside those chains. And contrary to what they told you about some Abraham Lincoln or Wilberforce or whoever they say freed us, nah. Your ancestors were everywhere, rebelling, waging war, doing everything they could to resist. Finally, that political system in all different types of places in the Caribbean and the Americas, on the African continent, slowly but surely could no longer maintain the institution of slavery. So they quit. We got to do something else. We can't hold them anymore. We physically cannot hold Black people in chains anymore. We got to switch it up. So our ancestors beat that part. Only part left is the mental change. That's it. That's it. And the way we break those is changing our ideology. Going back here, using the Sankofa process, getting back our history, our culture, our way of seeing things, and making the adjustment mentally. Once we do that, it's a wrap. When enough people do it, it's ball game. That's it. Do your part. Do your part. Any questions? Anybody got any questions? Feedback? I'll give it a few before I sign off. I appreciate y'all watching, paying attention. I'm not seeing any questions. So with that, I know there's a slight delay, so I'm gonna wait another 30 seconds. And I'll put something in the chat. There we go. All right, y'all have a good one. I appreciate y'all, man. We'll do this again. We'll keep doing it. Keep spreading the word. All right, y'all be easy.